And not according to that one Methodist guy in Abingdon
Oh, yeah.
State, where even like Anna's like, all right, you need to calm down. This is all propaganda.
All right. You ready?
They're just dusters and skinny. It's like, okay, whoa.
Yeah. Too far. All right. Let's get this started. And welcome to another episode of A Talk of Opportunity, a podcast all about tabletop RPGs, board games, video games, sci-fi, pop culture. I like how I keep adding new things every time we come up with a new topic to it. Book reviews,
I mean,
movie reviews,
okay,
cooking channel,
okay,
and all things in between. We're very broad. Nah, I'm kidding. We mainly do tabletops and tabletop games, and like sometimes we talk about books.
but the idea but the idea of having a book discussion is not nothing new to not something new.
Nothing new.
Yeah, to this. I mean, we've obviously done something like that. So
yeah, for sure. But this is Jose, one of your hosts, and with me, the one, the only, Andrew.
Yes, me here on this totally nothing happening, nothing important going on this Sunday. There's no significance to this day.
Not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit.
Stop.
Happy birthday, Jose.
Thanks, Andrew. Nothing I much rather do than create a podcast episode on my birthday. But I mean that. I'm not being sarcastic. Actually, I mean that.
And because solely because it's Jose's birthday, I actually wanted to do something else, but he's like, no, we're talking about the Expanse, goddammit. And I'm like, whoa, okay, someone's being a little bit of a birthday bitch.
It's my birthday month, okay?
No, I'm kidding. No, so for any of our listeners that's like, oh hey, I like it when they talk about D&D, I'm sorry. The next couple episodes you can just tune out.
Yeah. Yeah, as you might have guessed, we're talking about the very short book series.
8 books.
The Expanse.
8? Is it 8 or 12?
9.
Jesus.
9 books.
Okay.
By James S.A. Corey. But with that, let's play that intro.
So after that brutal assault by the Orc warrior, the initiative now goes to you. Jose, what do you do?
I'm gonna cast
brevity is the soul of wit. You don't want to have something drag out. So
yeah, for sure.
Or in our case, drag on. Get it? Because Dungeons and Dragons. Anyways.
Yes. But we're back.
Oh, and
before we get moving,
speaking of
sci-fi.
Wait, hold on. Speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, I had to give Teresa a piece of my mind about the druid wild shaping into an owlbear for the Dungeons and Dragons trailer.
Oh God! You scare her away already.
Just like, and about 20 seconds in, she realized what I was talking about, and she just like, okay. I'm like, an owlbear is classified as a monstrosity, not a beast, so they shouldn't be wild shaping into it.
Yeah, when I talk to Kristen about Dungeons and Dragons, he just immediately tunes me
just
out.
0 out of 10, not even.
Not even gonna watch it. Not enough owlbears.
I bet you honestly, because the trailer does seem like they actually care about having fun and whatnot, but I bet you that was probably like a marketing decision. It's like, no, we gotta push the owlbear because everyone knows what that is,
Yeah,
and it's like
it's the most popular one, creature,
and it's either that or she wild shapes into a beholder. It's like of the two, at least I can argue an owlbear is an owl and a bear.
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
Oh, poor Theresa.
You don't know the half of it.
All right. So before we get moving, though, talking about our new obsession, what are you drinking? Today?
Probably shouldn't be snapping my fingers into the microphone. So,
snap harder.
So
this is when Heather's like, "Oh, fuck that," just turns it off.
Oh no, she. When I said we're talking about the expansion, she's like, and we're done. Okay. So,
no, she likes sci-fi-ish stuff. I think the only one of our group that doesn't is Robert.
So because this is kind of around the end of spooky season, I'm drinking something spooky-tacular. I'm drinking.
Oh, nice.
I'm drinking the Joffrey's blend of the Hocus Pocus, which is the Sanderson sisters brew of cinnamon, apple, and caramel. Now this does have artificial flavors in it, or added flavors. I don't know if it's artificial. And so when you open it, you just get smacked in the face with the apple and caramel. And I was like, oh no, this might not be good. But I'm drinking a cold brew version of it, and it's actually quite mellow. You don't really? It's because of the added flavors, it is sweet. So if I was to add creamer to it, it'd probably be too much.
Too sweet.
Yeah, but just by itself, it's just fine. So it's actually not that bad. I was expecting to be like kind of disgustingly sweet, because when you do added flavors in coffee, it can go wrong really bad. But no, this actually it's actually quite not subtle, but it's not overwhelming. So
yeah, I recently encountered that I actually like pumpkin spice.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So at work, we have a 23-year-old who she's always like, "Hey, does anybody want some Starbucks?" So everybody's like, "Yeah, okay, let's get Starbucks." So one day I was like, "You know what? Surprise me. Just get me whatever the hell you think is good." She got me this weird concoction, and I'm like, "Okay, what is it?" And then it was like a pumpkin spice latte, something shy, whatever, with 37 shots of espresso, and I'm like, fucking amazing. I was like, okay, I get it. At that moment,
dude,
my eyes turned blue, and I was like, let the spice flow.
Dude, I was like, I have a basic white girl when it comes to pumpkin spice. I'm like, yeah, pumpkin spice latte, baby. The only thing I don't like it when it's pumpkin spice everything, like pumpkin spice pancakes, pumpkin spice we saw pumpkin spice pretzels. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna draw a line there. But
too far.
But pumpkin spice lattes, yeah, hell yeah, I'm right in front of the line on that one. Shit.
Yeah, I mean, I never really had anything strong against them, right? But I wasn't like, oh no, I don't know, whatever. But for some reason, it's been 3 times in the past since October started. I'm like, I dig it.
And it's always really funny because what's it like? I don't want to say I'm an imposing guy, but I am a big guy, and I tell people I love coffee, and they always just assume that means I like black manly coffee, and I'm like, no man,
you like coffee like your metal.
No man, give me that. Well, yeah, cold and black, but yeah, but sometimes, but it's like no man, give me that fucking caramel drizzle and shit, salted caramel. Yeah man, I want that fucking foam.
Cocoa shavings.
Yeah man, I'm gonna treat myself when I have coffee.
Big tall dude with a tiny little super nice and sprinkled nicely coffee. Delicious.
Yeah.
I'm drinking something completely out of left field because I'm still going through that mystery pack.
Okay.
I'm drinking a Kona pineapple.
What?
Kona pineapple from Adagio Teas.
Okay.
So it has, let me see.
Is it
ingredients? Apple pieces, rose hips, lemongrass, orange, natural pineapple flavor, pineapple pieces, rose petals, marigold flowers, natural orange flavor. This is type okay. It's everything but tea.
Well, which when we get to the second book.
Oh, that's lovely.
When we get to the second book, we're gonna have to drink whatever type of tea Avasarala drinks.
Oh, Avasarala, yeah.
What time? She doesn't drink Earl Grey. I know she drinks something else. I
can't remember.
And I don't want to say matcha because that might be racist on my But I know she does drink some kind of tea. Although like I said, Holden is probably me.
I knew you would connect with that.
Just literally praying to the coffee machine. I'm like, dude, I've been there, man.
Yeah. I was reading that and I'm like, man, do I know somebody like that?
Yeah, me.
If Andrew was ever in space.
But God, that one passage where he has 5 cups of coffee in like an hour. I'm like, holy shit, dude.
Hey man, he's dealing with a lot of stress, okay?
Although to be fair, knowing what they went through, coffee is like the least of their worries because
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about the Expanse universe, and I don't know if maybe a future book touches on it, but they play fast and loose with the amphetamines, man. It's just like, dude, what's it? Oh, you got a paper cut? Boom! Here's some
Here's some speed, bitch.
yeah, hygiene burn speed.
Yeah.
Like it would be really interesting if we had like a character in the future that it like intentionally is like, oh no, we're gonna have to go to a high speed burn. I'm gonna have to give us the juice just because I'm like, I need that extra hit, man. And so I was like, sir, are you abusing the Martian like
No.
the Martian medical system? Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh man. All right. Well, let's get a little bit of organization to this episode.
Yeah.
We're talking about The Expanse, a book series of a total of 9 books by James S. Corey, which is actually a pen name for 2 writers. Both amazing.
Nom de plume is the proper term.
Yeah. Oh, is that what it is?
I don't know.
Oh, wow.
That's just the arrogant way of saying it.
Let me see if I can find any names. They are Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank. And I think Ty Frank actually helped write a lot of the Game of Thrones episode. He worked really closely with George R. R. Martin.
Oh, no shit. Really?
Yeah. And also they run and are very involved with the actual show, The Expanse.
Good.
So, let's talk about how we got introduced to The Expanse first before we get into all the craziness of the first book. Andrew, how did you get introduced to The Expanse?
Okay, so I was kind of aware of The Expanse before we started reading it. When it had like originally came out on sci-fi and stuff like that. Like a lot of people were like, oh, it's like Game of Thrones in space and stuff like that. I'm like, okay. And this was like right when Game of Thrones was at the height of its popularity. And I kind of written it off. And I'm like, okay, there's probably be a lot of people who's like, oh, it's like Game of Thrones, but with, the auto industry or some bullshit like that. So I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And so it was kind of like a ping on my radar. And then I reread Dune, and so that kind of like revitalized my love for reading and stuff like that. And then you were going on about the Expanse series about and how you were doing your thing. Yeah. And I had actually just finished reading another book. It was we had always lived in the castle by Shirley Jackson, which great book by the way. And I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna give, because Apple Books does a thing where they can where you can demo like the first like 100 something, or no, it's like first like 40 pages of a book or whatever. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, okay, I'll give this I'll give this, sorry, the bird outside is making weird noises. I'll give this Leviathan Wakes book a little demo, and it had the entire Julie Mao prologue, I think the first Holden'S chapter, and like half of the first Miller chapter, and I was like immediately hooked. I was like, wow, okay, because I'm always a little worried about going into sci-fi because it has a lot of potential to be very dry. Mm-hmm. Like if anyone has read Isaac Asimov, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But this like it immediately plunges you in it, and it respects its audience, because it's not going to take anyone, like, it's not going to hold your hand on a lot of stuff, but it also doesn't like bore you down with a lot of details. Like, no, it's just like a lot of contextual stuff. So,
yep.
But yeah, it was because of you. Thanks.
You're welcome. Now you're 5 books in. You're like, I need more.
I'm only 4 books in. Okay.
Oh, 4 books in. My bad.
4 books in, and the entire collection of the short stories.
I need to read the short stories. I haven't read any of those.
I haven't read them yet. I want to wait. Well, if
oh, you bought them, right, for the special?
I did.
Special bundle you got?
I did buy them, but I haven't read them yet because I want to go through the main things first.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I was introduced when I used to work at Cool Stuff because we were talking. There was a heated debate about best sci-fi show or something like that,
Mhm,
and everybody was just like, "Oh, Battlestar Galactica, Battlestar Galactica, Battlestar Galactica." I'm like, "Oh, I never heard of that." They're
mhm,
like, "Oh, it's Game of Thrones in space," and I'm like, "Oh, cool." And then my supervisor at the time was like, "Well, if you like that, because I got canceled,
mhm.
try the Expanse." At that time, the Expanse was still going. Try,
If you're like,
try the Expanse.
this is going so hot, it will never get canceled.
Never get canceled. Yeah, she's like, try the Expanse. It's really good. It's like Game of Thrones. And she's like, and the main character kind of looks like Jon Snow. And I'm like, okay, cool. So
Does
the actor, yeah. If you look at him, he's essentially Jon Snow.
hmm.
Yeah. So I'm like, like, okay, cool. I'll give it a chance, right? So before I bought the first book, I started reading about it. Kind of forgot about it, and then came back around. I started looking for reviews and whatnot. Like, oh, should you read the Expanse? Is it a good book? All that kind of stuff. And the thing that I gravitated to the most is that this book started as an art tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
And the reason why that one character dies really early in the first book is because the player dropped out of the game.
Really?
All those Naomi, Alex, Holden,
Shed.
the other guy that Shed,
Aimless.
Amos, all of them were characters in the first game that they were doing of this book, of what eventually became the books. And the reason why the guy gets his head blown off is because he stepped out of the game, and they were like, "Oh, we got to write him out somewhere." Is it kind of like how like Guard disappears? It was like that, but with him, it was like, "Oh, this guy just died."
And the thing about it is that I picked up on that before because the way Miller gets introduced is a it's a great storyline beat, but it's also a perfect like, oh, we had a guy that jumped in midway through a campaign. What
Yeah.
better way to introduce him than combat? Just like aha, just like through the door.
Yeah, exactly. You can, especially with the first book, you can really feel like the RPG influence.
Yeah, it and you can definitely tell by the second one it drops off, which is fine because that now they're like, okay, we're gonna have to world build and do like stuff like that. But the first one, it really does play out like a very well written like tabletop.
Especially like the first like half of the book is like, oh, somebody's just it. If you know that little bit of information, you kind of go back to it and you're like, oh, it really does feel like somebody's played a tabletop RPG.
Hey,
they're just like recapping it.
Hold on, just. Hold on, I gotta take a picture of this because Sushi's wearing his Halloween costume.
Oh,
Sushi, come back. Sushi, hey. I'll send it to you. All right, get out of here. All right. Sorry about that.
No, it's so good.
All right.
So, anyways, yeah. After I learned that, I was like, oh wow, this is amazing because it's this. For what I understand, the story essentially went like, oh, I'm doing research to create my own tabletop RPG. It was a Kickstarter at one point or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, the main dude did so much fucking research that his colleagues were just like, nobody does this much research for a tabletop RPG. You should turn this into a book.
Well,
and he was like, okay.
Well,
no, because like, he went deep into like the science, the politics. Like he just like went insane and like grabbing every bit of information.
But also at the same time, it doesn't feel like you're ever like in over your head. Like it's easily tangible, digestible.
Yep.
Like
and like you said earlier, I really appreciated that because Dune, fantastic book.
Mm-hmm.
But God, is it dense?
It is.
Right?
There is so much going into it that like it. I mean, just like little blink and you miss it parts. So you're just like, wait, what? And never gets touched up on again. Whereas this is like kind of the opposite, where you'll get like little tabs of information, and then the more you read it, the more books you read, the more it will expand into it. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it. So
yeah, exactly that. And then I was gonna go and start watching the show, but I was like, wait, I'm not gonna do the same thing I did with Game of Thrones because I really enjoy the world of the Song of Ice and Fire. But since I watched the show, it's been really hard for me to read the books because, especially the first two seasons, are very close to the books, and it's just very hard for me to get through them. So I didn't want to do that. So I did the opposite. I was like, okay, let me read the book. But the first one, read it in like a week. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
It's so good.
They're easy reads too. Like
yeah, that too.
They're
They're
not
almost 600 pages, but it doesn't feel like 600 pages.
no, they're easily digestible. Like they don't feel dense. Like those 600 pages go by quick. Especially
real quick.
Especially like the parts where where the rubber hits the road and the action starts picking up. It's just like those pages fly, man.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So then I did that, and then I stopped, and I'm like, and then I tried to read the second one. I got stopped like halfway through, and I got burned out with books, I think, or something. I stopped for like a year. It was actually the Doom book, whatever. Then I'm like, you know what? It was sitting there, and it had like the little the bookmark on it. Picked it back up. It was like everything flushed. Like that's what I'm saying about that. It's really easy to digest because it's the minute I started reading, all the memories came back.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I couldn't do that with Dune. If I stopped halfway through Dune, I will have to start all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, with a lot of books, but with this one, it was like boom, and I'm like, why did I stop reading? This is so good. And then from there, I haven't stopped. It's been like 2 weeks, and I'm on book 5. I'm about to start it today.
Like I can tell you right now, because before we started this, I just kind of skimmed through the first book just a little bit. It's like touching on this part, and then it immediately kind of picked back up. I tried to do that with the Wheel of Time series, and I'm like completely fucking lost. I'm just gonna have to start over again. And I made it through 3 books of those, and I don't even remember the events of the second book. Like it's just gone out of my head. So,
yeah,
maybe that's just me. Maybe it's a me problem. But still.
All right. So, how do you want to talk? Do you just want to go straight to the questions, or do you want to talk about like what we like a little bit of a review on the book, or
well, I mean, yeah, we can kind of touch on like the story beats a bit.
Yeah.
And then we can give like our own thoughts, and then maybe we can do the discussion. Or no, I definitely want to do the discussions. But
yes.
So
let's do main story beats. So I will start with just kind of like a big recap of the whole Expanse universe, and then you can start diving into the first book.
Okay.
So the Expanse. Woo! It's essentially not so far future, so it's not like Dune where it's like 10,000s upon 10,000s of years.
But it is like 1,000 years or something in the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you know, it's not too crazy.
Yeah.
Where some madman, I forgot his name, Epstein.
The unfortunate name of Epstein. Yes.
Epstein. Yeah, Epstein Drive. Some guy named Epstein was like, you know what? Actually, no. Let me rewind a little bit. Humans started colonizing Mars, right? And they're doing their Mars thing, building domes and doing underground passages or whatever. This one dude was like, you know what? I'm gonna start messing with this drive and see how fast I can go. And he developed what they call the Epstein Drive, right?
And it's
sadly.
Oh no! Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, so sadly, it's not like any other sci-fi out there where it's like, oh, we go really fast, but we don't feel it. No, you feel every bit of acceleration through the Epstein Drive.
The Epstein Drive is slower than light, but the guy that the inventor, Epstein himself, tried it on his boat and was immediately killed.
Yeah.
By the impact of it. And it was something like described as like the most extravagant funeral there was.
Yeah. Yeah, because the ship's still going. It never stopped. It left the solar system and it just kept going. Anyway, so that's the whole that's like the main catalyst for humanity to kind of like start expanding, right? It was Epstein Drive, which, like I said earlier, it's not necessarily like, oh, hit warp drive and boom, nothing happens, right? Like you feel it. So while yes, humans have expanded all throughout the solar system, it still takes a long time to get to certain places, even with the Epstein Drive, because while the ships could travel way faster than they can, humans cannot take it.
No,
they have certain things that they can do to kind of like mitigate the damage on their bodies, but it only helps up to a certain threshold.
Yeah. I think it's something where it's like 8 Gs is pushing it. Where like anything sustained over 8 Gs, like the human body will just get liquefied. Right.
But what's interesting about this, and it kind of plays into some of the story beats, is that a ship with humans cannot try pass farther than this, but torpedoes can. Or whatchamacallit, like a pod with supplies in it can. do that because there's no humans in it, so they can go as fast as
Yep.
it will allow it to go. Of course, when humans expand, politics come into play. So right before the first book, there's 3 factions. There is the UN, which is the Earthers. There's the Martian. Do they have a name, or is it just the Martians?
It's the Martians, Congressional Republic. No, it's the Martians Congressional Republic. So it's the MCR, and then there's the Navy, which
the
is
MCRM.
Yeah.
The Martians
and it should be noted that the Earthers is the United Nations. Like there's no USA or anything. It's all UN. So
the whole world somehow have come together in kumbaya. I say that.
The second book kind of
imagine there's no countries. So essentially, what is the blue is the Earth, the reds are the Martians, yada yada. The reason why is because, well, for obvious reasons, the Earth has been overpopulated, of course. So people have started to move to Mars. Once the Epstein drive was discovered, people started moving onto the belt, the asteroid belt,
and it's something
this becomes kind of like the Wild West, the new frontier.
And by overpopulated, we're talking like the Earth is at like 60 billion strong or something like that. Like they are like building on top of each other. That's how overpopulated they are.
Yeah. So the only way people can get rid of that or get past that is to move to Mars. The problem with Mars is that it doesn't have an atmosphere. So everybody's living underground or in dome cities, which obviously limits how many people can be there. But then the people who can push even farther than that, they move to the asteroid belts.
Yep.
The asteroid belts to me is the most fascinating part because it's humans literally living in big old asteroids.
Yep.
They have built colonies inside of it and rotate the asteroids at a certain speed to fake gravity inside of it. So everybody's like inside of a corn dog pushing against the corn part of the dog.
But it's not like 1G gravity. Like this.
No.
Living the life of a belter, you're probably facing max a 3rd G. So anything
just enough to keep your feet on the ground.
Yeah, so anything above that is like pressurized to a belter. It's very interesting talking about how like Martians deal, especially like when you get to the second book where it's talking like how a Martian deals with Earth gravity and stuff like that, or like in the first book where an Earther has to deal with Belter's gravity and how awkward they move around in it.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I love the way James S.A. Corey kind of talks about it, because it makes it very relatable. The way it's not convoluted, it's not a bunch of science. It's like, oh, if you were in a pool and you didn't know how to swim type of thing, or like it's just very easy to digest. So this brings us to right before the before I get to the first before the first book. Hold on 1 second. Right before we get to the first book, one of the main things is that the asteroid belt doesn't quite have a government. It's actually being run by factions from Mars and the UN. Different security, what do you call it? Security factions, I guess you could say, like sheriffs.
Yeah, it's security businesses, like some corporations. Like it's like you get the sense that like the belt is very colonist. Like they're their own people. They don't really get help from the UN and the MCR, but they still have to answer to them.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. And then they have to send resources and whatever to other planets. The whole colony type thing. So that brings us to the beginning of the first book.
Yes.
With Leviathan Wakes.
Yep.
A hell of a book. If you don't want to read the whole 9 stories, it ends perfectly fine. It's just one of those you can tell, like, you can stop there. However, I doubt that you will be able to stop there.
There is a bit of like just the tiniest seed of a cliffhanger, not a cliffhanger, but like a continuation for the next book. Yeah. So it's just more like, hey, if you want to, here you go. But yeah, it does kind of wrap up nicely. So
All right, so that was a little bit of the background, as accurate as I can remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Andrew, let's get started with the book. You get going. How does Leviathan Wakes starts?
It starts with like in media res. We begin with a character that we have no idea who she is, but her name resonates throughout the rest of the books. Julie Mao, who has spent the last 8 days in a locker that she has been locked in by what she believes is pirates, and
Yeah,
and
it's
so
Zero G.
yeah, and zero G exactly. On the ship called the Scopuli, which by the way, I love all the ship names
Yeah.
in this. Like you have. We'll get into them, but they're all pretty strong. There's only one ship I don't like, and that's because it's called the Badass Motherfucker, and I'm like, all right, really. Anyways, so she has been trapped in this locker for 8 days, and so she literally just punches her way out. She has been waiting because the artificial gravity has kicked off, I think like 3 days in or something like that, and she had been like drinking her own like filtered urine or something like that. She's like, all right, I'm done. And she punches her way out of a locker, which is a trend that you will find amongst the Mao siblings. They are really good at punching lockers. So,
I didn't make that connection, but you're right.
and so she's going she's going through the Scopuli, and she's expecting resistance, and there's no resistance, and then she finds a control panel covered in what she can only describe as flesh, and in the middle of this flesh pool comes the head of her captain, and it just says, help me. And then we just immediately kick off, all right, here's Holden, and it's just here we are in the Canterbury, we're just hauling ice, just yay.
I remember, yeah, because she finds it, if I can remember correctly, in the reactor core, right? It's wrapped around the reactor core, and it's like at the head of the captain, like,
yeah. So
and then boom, next
so
next chapter.
So we gave you a little taste of like Dead Space, and then here we are in the, I think, what's the company, Pure and Clean? They're ice.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, they're ice haulers that haul ice from like
Fresh and Clean.
Oh, Fresh and Clean. Thank you. They haul ice from I think like Jupiter or some crap like that, and it's literally just on the Canterbury. Again, great ship name. Our main protagonist, executive officer.
Is that the name of the ship?
Yeah. Executive officer James Holden, who we immediately established is a bit of a Casanova.
Yep.
You know, he and what's interesting is that his love interest on the Canterbury, he wants to take it to the next step, but she's like, no, like, let's just keep this business. And he's like, oh come on, babe, like, you and me, we can go steady and stuff like that. And she's like, no, you're my XO. And he's like, okay, fine, I guess we'll just keep it professional.
As professional as you can. But it's funny enough though, it sounds, oh, it's a Casanova and whatever, but like they actually touch upon that, like long space travel, and it is a thing that humans do, and they actually talk about it. I don't know if you got into that part in Cibola Burn, but like they do touch upon
it. When one of the characters is like, we've been on this ship for like a year and a half, how do you not expect us to do something?
Yeah.
Because for all intents and purposes, yes, we are flying in a marvel of human engineering, but it's been a year and a half, and like, things happen.
Yeah. Oh, before we move on, let's hold on, because I forgot to talk about the covers. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I love the covers of these books, and I'm gonna have to turn off my camera because it's like doing that thing.
Mm-hmm.
They do have. At first, I was like, "What the hell is happening?" Because the cover, the art itself, and I hate to say it, but it kind of looks like AI art, but it's not. It's an actual artist. He's really good. But every book has a very strong color designated to each one of them for the text. And at first, I thought it was kind of weird, right? But the more I like saw it, and the more I it has such a strong branding.
Yes.
And I just want to showcase my birthday present to myself, which is the special editions of Leviathan Wakes with foil paper and glowing nice lettering all over it with soft touch black.
But it's
I'm never gonna read this. I'm just gonna put it in.
but it's such an interesting choice to have like blue and pink be like your
Mhm.
starting off, and then I think the next one is what? It's like green.
White and orange.
Is it white and orange? And then the next one is
White,
green and red and something like that.
green and white, green and yellow. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just very interesting. Like it feels futuristic,
It does feel futuristic. Yeah.
but it's not like overly like like
Each one of the artwork, each one of the artwork pieces, like there's like you can tell it's kind of like a ship or something with an asteroid right behind it. But I feel like a lot of like sci-fi covers out there is like either like very what's on the nose.
Mhm.
Like, oh, it's space. So here's space. Space looks blue. It looks like it's a freaking sky. Like, you know what I mean? I love that. It's abstract enough to kind of capture you. The more you read, then you start understanding what's on the cover. Like, it doesn't give it all away right away.
Yeah.
However, that Polish cover you sent me though,
That's kid.
that's a piece of chef kiss all the way.
I mean, just like I said, man, just let them make the covers.
They obviously know what they're doing.
I mean, it's not the first case of we didn't make the good covers. Let's let somebody else make the good covers.
Anyways, that's my internal graphic designer talking.
So we have Holden, and he is tasked to check out an emergency beacon by his.
No, hold on. Before that they get an emergency. So what I love about that first chapter is they get an emergency ping.
Yes.
And everybody's like pirates.
Yeah, they're like
trap.
Yep.
By law,
mm-hmm.
If that ping is logged into their system, they have to check it out.
Yep.
No one wants to check it out.
Nope. And there's a neat moment. There's actually a little bit of a neat moment before this neat moments, where he's going to his commanding officer's cabin, and there's a character who has lost an arm because it gets like smashed by a giant ice haul, and he's like, yeah, my medical coverage could probably cover limb regeneration, but I'm just gonna go with the cyborg arm. And it's just like a oh, okay, we have this technology, and
nonchalant.
And Jim's like, all right, man, well, that's gonna come out of your deductible or whatever. And he just like walked off.
Yeah, it's an everyday thing.
Yep, and
which, by the way, there's a lot of very grievous injuries that happen throughout the book, and you're like,
nah,
he's not gonna recover from that. And they're like, yeah, we have the most advanced medical system in our ship.
You will be surprised what happens if we have good healthcare and a lot of amphetamines, baby.
Yeah.
Like I said, fast and loose with the amphetamines. But it's just like a neat little like tidbit here where the doctor's like, oh well, it's like, here, try out your new hand. It's gonna take a second, to get used to it. Like just a little drop into like context here. So then he goes to his commanding officer, and for a good while they're like talking about, like, we can just ignore this, right? And is it Jim that's like, no, we have to do this?
No,
like
so they all, if I remember correctly, this is when you start getting a glimpse of who James Holden is, because everybody ignores it. Everybody, like, when everybody's present, everybody's like, nope, we don't need this. We're just gonna keep going. We never received this. Nobody logged this in. Blah blah yada yada. Right? Then he comes back later at night by his lonesome, right? And he's like, I think he's talking to that chick that I can't remember the exact details, but he ends up being alone in the command deck.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night shift or whatever. And he logs it in.
Yep.
Because that's just who Holden is. He's like this, for lack of a better word, the Jon Snow of this show. Like, he's very like, gotta do the right thing.
But like, but like, the interesting thing about it is that his commanding officer isn't like, oh god damn it, Holden, you're a loose cannon. Like, no, you know what? I'm just gonna go by your judgment on this. If you want to check it out, it's fine. But then he says, don't be a hero.
Yep.
and spoiler alert.
9 books in, and he's still the hero.
Yeah. So
Oh, I can't say that. I only just finished the 4th book.
yeah, I mean
4 books in.
I mean it could be like book 5. Oh, here's James Holden. Boosh, and he just gets
Now we have Jim Latham.
Yeah, now it's the Amos books, baby.
Yes, Amos.
Anyways, what's it? So he's like, all right, I'll get a skeleton crew together. It's going to be me, Amos, who is a mechanic, but he's like, no, I'm not a mechanic. I'm just a grease monkey.
Right.
And then Naomi, the engineer, Shed Garvey, the medical. He's not even like a doctor. He's like a technician or something like that.
Well, they found that he's not an actual doctor until later on.
Oh, okay. But it's like I was like, okay, you're a med guy, and then Alex, Kamal, thank you, Alex Kamal, the pilot, which is again another fascinating thing where it's like Alex is Indian. He's full-blooded Indian, but because he's from Mars, everybody on Mars speaks with a Texas accent. because
he never loses it either.
Because there was one Texan guy on Mars or something like they talk about how there's like a very small population of Texans that made their way to Mars, but somehow the Texas drawl has infected everybody. So it's like a good way to tell if you're a Martian, you speak with a Texan accent.
Yeah, I love that small detail because every time he says something, they say that Texas drawl, and I'm like, oh, he's a pilot, but the Texas, like, it's so cool.
But it's funny because they describe him like I think it's somebody else later in the book. It's like, okay, the way you look versus the way you talk is throwing me off. because he's described as being like the most not stereotypical, but like most common looking. Like he looks like a school teacher, but then he speaks with a thick Texan drawl, and it's just like, like everybody has to like calibrate to it for a second. All right, so then they get on a small, what is it? It's like a boarding vessel or something like that.
Yeah, it's like it's like an explorer vessel. It's like the one that goes and like takes out the ice.
Yeah, and they get on the Night. That's what it's called, and then they go to investigate the ping, and then we get and that's where the Holden chapter ends, and then we jump into Miller's chapter, which I think personally we don't really get an establishing character moment for Holden until probably about 2 or 3 of his chapters in. But
I can see that.
But maybe there's the big moment where it's like, okay, this is who Holden is. You get like little hints and pieces of that, but then we immediately find out who Miller is. Like the second like his chapter starts, where he is questioning, or more like having a conversation with the Belter, and they're speaking such thick Belter slang. I'm like, wait, am I gonna get a translation? And no, and the answer to that is no, you don't.
The only reason I was able to follow a little bit is because some of it is in Spanish.
Yeah, and it's and you immediately get the idea that Belter, what's it? They call it Belter Creole, but it's not. Yeah. It's not just Creole. Like you do get Creole, but then you get like Spanish, and then you get like some other stuff, and it's really just the most like complete amalgamation of all different cultures, and then throw them out into the farthest reaches of the solar system. So you have Miller, who is described as kind of a stereotypical detective. He wears a pork pie hat. He is thin and gaunt even for Belter standards, because Belters are like 6 feet minimum, and they're like really thin because of the gravity and whatnot. And you have him questioning another Belter about just some mundane stuff. Mundane for Miller, regarding about how these gray market types are not collecting protection rackets,
right?
And then you get the frustration of his Earther partner Havelock, who you can tell is much more by the book. He's much more used to like a justice system, and Havelock is frustrated that there even is something called a gray market.
Yeah.
And then Miller has the classic line of, there is no law, there is only the police. And that kind of establishes like where the belt kind of stands. Like they will allow this stuff like protection rackets and like sometimes like smuggling and whatnot, as long as it doesn't like throw everything into chaos,
Hmm.
but obviously they're going to put their foot down on certain things. But and I think it's later on in the book where they talk about how like Miller like allowed like cheese smugglers or something like,
Oh yeah.
it's like,
don't they bring that up in not Aero Station, Thought Station?
yeah,
Yeah.
and someone's like, wait, you mean they actually had real cheese? And like, yeah, I wasn't gonna let that go. Are you kidding me? But it's just like a neat, like peek into like Miller's world about
Hmm.
how yeah, you're totally right. Like the belt is kind of like the Wild West,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And I love Miller, dude. In the first book, Miller was my favorite character.
mhm,
He was just that detective noir, like off the books, very rough background, like drinks and like gets shit done in a certain way.
yeah,
However, though, just because we're already 46
I know,
minutes
I know,
in,
I know.
but what I want to get to is that each book is not just a sci-fi story.
Yeah,
Each book, the writers take a chance with a genre or a subgenre per book. So the first book is definitely detective noir.
yep.
The second book, and the ones I read, the second book is a political thriller.
Mm-hmm.
The third book is a ghost story.
It's kind of a ghost story meets like a disaster movie
Yeah.
kind of a
Yep.
thing.
Yep. And then the fourth book is like a western.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So so this book, the first Leviathan Wakes, is very much Detective Miller's story, alongside Holden as a backup. Holden obviously becomes the hero, not the hero. I'm sorry, that's well, yeah, I guess the hero, but like the main character throughout all the books.
yeah,
But there's a very heavy emphasis on Miller.
yes.
I think so. The story beats is we meet them.
Mm-hmm.
The Canterbury goes to follow the pin. They get to the pin, and what do they find?
They find the scopuli, and they're investigating it, and things are not right.
Yeah.
Clearly. And Holden, to his credit, he does have a measure of cautiousness, and he's like, okay, I'm not going to be a hero, we got to get out of here. and
Yeah.
and when they're leaving, that's when they find that the Canterbury has been targeted by
Yep.
something. They're not entirely sure what, and before they are able to make it back, the Canterbury is destroyed. And and the and what's interesting is that they're like, okay, there are torpedoes on the way, because it's all outer space, so they
Yeah.
treat it like naval combat. Like, okay, there's torpedoes on the way to the Canterbury. And they're like, okay, well, how far are we away from the Canterbury? We're a couple hours out. Okay, we are going to burn as fast as we can there, and we're just going to try to help the survivors. What they don't know is that what they don't realize is that the torpedoes are nuclear warheads, so there is no Canterbury to go back to.
Yeah.
It just gets wiped out. And I think it's Naomi that says something where it's like, there is no Canterbury, it's just space dust now.
Yep.
And this is where we get what I feel is the establishing moment for James Holden, where he gets on the laser comm array to these warships that just nuked a frigate ship out of the of space, and he's like, hey, look, you motherfuckers, these are all the people that were on the Canterbury and stuff like that. And
That's the full name.
he sends like the full like roster to these warships, and he's essentially like goading them, like, just say, like, he in his mind, he's trying to guilt them out, being like, hey, these were people that you killed. But then I think it's either Naomi or Amos that says like, hey, you do realize you're going to get us killed if you keep acting like this. Like all you're doing is that you're just saying, hey, we're still alive, and we're gonna tell the whole world about what happened. Um, and and the thing is that they find a transponder on the scopuli that has, I don't know if
Martian batteries.
a Martian battery. Thank you. I didn't know if the transponder was Martian made or it had a Martian battery in it. So they're like, oh, this is a Martian battery. This is a Martian transponder. Whatever happened here, it was a Martian ship. And James Holden does the first of many stupid things. And that is where he just shotguns a message out saying, hey, the Martians have
Everyone.
to everybody, just shotguns a message like, hey, we found this Martian transponder on the scopuli, and when we discovered it, the Canterbury got nuked. And that just, all right, war has started now. Thank you. And then that leads to what I think is one of the coolest moments of the Miller story, where the riots are taking place on Sarah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So but what's important about that bit is that Holden unwillingly becomes the face of the OPA, which is the Outer Planets Alliance.
Yep.
It's essentially a government that was trying to become a government,
well,
but Earthers and Martians see it as a terrorist group.
Yeah, well, it's like up until this point, it's like, is it a terrorist group? Are they freedom fighters? Like, what are they? And it's like, are they even an actual thing? Like, is there a structure to the OPA?
Yeah, is there a head to it? Like what is happening here? Like, it's just people have tattoos of it. And they almost describe it as just like an anarchy sign. Like, it's not really like a thing. You know, it's just like edgy people being edgy. But Holden unifies all of them behind that, because the ship that got attacked was a Belter ship.
Yep.
Or the Canterbury was a Belter ship.
And what we come to find was that the OPA has been here the whole time. They just kind of been in hiding, but they were also seeking like legitimacy. And so you have people that were adopting the OPA name to further their own benefits, but then you have people like the character Anderson Dawes that Miller gets introduced to, where like, no, he is an OPA cop. Like I am part of the police for the OPA, so I do uphold whatever the OPA's form of justice is. And we get that awesome moment where, to show Miller what he means by that, he guns down somebody that was a self-described OPA member. It's like, no, this guy doesn't represent us. This guy's a common crook. And he goes into his pod and just blows him away. Like, okay, see, this is what the OPA stands for, you know? And it's just neat little moments like that. Because up until this point, you have Miller and Havelock being like, well, what is the OPA? And Miller's like, oh, that's just, I don't know, something that kids latch onto, some kind of crap. But then Miller starts to dig into like why these protection rackets have started dropping, and it all leads back to like the OPA is like starting to take over. And at first he's like, oh, well, then this means the OPA is bad news. And then you kind of infer from what Anderson Dawes says, like, no, the OPA is not taking over. They are cleaning house. You know, like Star Helix and stuff like that, like the Earther and Mars security corporations, like, they don't care. So we're going to do our own things, you know, like we're like,
and it's cool because it's very muddy in the beginning, and it isn't until after the the Martian ship. Donager. After the Donager and Fred Johnson makes contact with Holden. That's when you're finally like, oh wow, okay, so it is like an actual thing.
Yeah.
You know, like that's when it's solidified in your mind. Which, by the way, the Donager bit, amazing. The tension when they were interviewing everyone separately to see what happened.
Let's just get into that.
All right.
Okay. So Holden says, hey, they don't. Okay, it's important to note they don't outright say the Martians are involved in this. They just say,
no, they do.
No.
They blame the Martians.
No. They say we have a Martian manufactured transponder
Oh,
Yeah, so they don't say the Martians did this. They're like, no, we found a Martian manufactured transponder, and people take that and run with it. So then we have
just like I did.
then we have like there's riots on Belter stations and stuff like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Open war has just started breaking
Yep.
out. Um and
Well, not quite yet until
mm,
after the Dunager.
that's
Yeah.
that's true. Um but okay, yeah. So things are starting to pick up to a boil, but they haven't yet. So then like there's a riot on Sarah's station, which we get the awesome scene where Miller and the rest of the police force are in not riot gear because they can't find the riot gear.
Oh yeah, dude,
The-
I love that. I okay, so yeah, keep going, but I love that.
like the riot gear has just gone missing. So like, okay, I guess we're just gonna have to wear the lethal stuff.
Yeah.
And Miller confronts a guy who has an OPA tattoo, and he's like, oh, I stand for the OPA, blah blah blah. And but he comes across him as he's murdering somebody in cold blood in the middle of the street. And Miller's like gives him pretty much like the, okay, there's two ways we can do this. Like, do you want to come peacefully or not? And the guy's like, oh, he starts giving Miller guff, and then Miller just says into a walkie-talkie, all right, kneecap him, and snipers just blow this dude's knees out.
Dude, I forgot about that. This show does not do that justice.
Oh man.
Like, he was such a brutal, like, so Miller's stories is very interesting to me because like he's a very brutal, Rudy, like just let's get this shit done or whatever. But there's a moment
Mhm.
after they give him the case of Julie Mao,
Yeah.
that he just gets destroyed.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of interesting because this isn't one of the discussion questions, but it's something I wanted to bring up because it's kind of been the forethought of my mind. Throughout this story, we see Holden's character develop, but inversely, like Miller's character, like when we start off with him, he's kind of already had his character arc. Like
Yeah.
he's like described as what, like in his late 50s or something like that.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
he's in his late 50s. He's an alcoholic. His wife has long since left him. And so as we see Holden develop, we see Miller unravel throughout the entire story. And if anything, his character becomes like his characterization starts to crumble until we just get this baseline person that inevitably just does what Miller has to do, and we'll get there.
Yeah, it's late 40s, by the way.
Yeah, okay. So then so because Holden says we believe them, this is a Martian made transponder, blah blah blah. Obviously the Martians like not going to take kindly to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they immediately get pinged like, hey, we're gonna send our flagship to come pick you up because hey, you can't just be saying this ship. And I also like it. I also like how it's described that like the UN has more ships, but the Martian has better ships.
Better ships, yeah.
Yeah.
Like more high tech stuff.
Yeah.
And it's fun. I think okay. As we talk about all this, I love that they keep bringing that up. Not just the ship, but also little things like the belter slang with their hands.
Oh yeah.
Because the belters, belters are, yeah, because the belters are so used to like being under pressurized suits all the time, obviously because of the freaking belt. They developed a language by hands, and like even when they're not wearing them, and they always make it's not something that they mention in the first book and then forget about it.
No,
it's always a constant thing. They always he shrugged with a belter hand sign. Like, like he mentions that the ships, the way the ships are built, like if I can remember correctly, Martian ships are better, more high tech, and they're built like buildings. There's no aerodynamic anything.
They are not sleek, and the Earther Jim like despairs at the fact that they are not sleek and that they are just they're just blocks. Because why would you worry about air resistance in space? Like, no, we need to we need to get a actual better ship. We're not going to worry about
but aerodynamics are so ingrained in the Earthers that even the ships that are built in space still have that avionics look, like oh, this is a spaceship, not a building with a thruster under it.
Nope. But Mars is just like, nope, we need to get an actual good ship. So they don't care about how it looks. They just care about how it functions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's actually kind of funny that you talk about like the belter nod stuff, because I think, isn't it in the second book one of the character gives a belter like nod to an earther, and they're like, "What the fuck are you doing with your hands?"
Oh, Bobby, yeah. Her whole experience on Earth, I loved it. I was like,
oh
when
my
she walks
God.
out, just like,
when,
"Ah!"
when we get to the second book and she has like like a panic attack, it's like, oh my God, the sky.
there's no dome.
And someone's like, oh, is this your first time on Earth?
Yeah. I imagine her screaming her head out, and then the camera cuts, and it's just a guy just standing next to her.
Just smash cut to her. Let me in.
Oh yeah, because she locks herself out.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, so back to the
That's second book shenanigans.
back to the first book. So and because we do not have faster than light travel, I think the knight has to wait months or something until they get picked up by the Martians.
Yeah,
which is
yeah. So that
which is also another really good way to hand wave like time. Be like, okay, well, while you were in the sweat box of a ship, which they described like none of these people have showered, they've been eating like protein bars and crap.
Yeah,
like
this is not like, oh, there's cabins or this was literally just like the functional bits. Like it was supposed to go out and come back in. That's nobody was meant to live there. Yeah.
Like there are like emergency rations and stuff like that. And you have a moment where Shed is like, this is barely a medical cabinet. there's the basics here, but we don't have anything that really covers any sort of massive medical emergencies. So because we have slower than light travel, they have to wait for months until this Martian ship picks them up. And then when they do pick them up, it is the biggest Martian ship. It is so big that the Donager ship is its own class of ships. And later on in the book, you will get other ships like, oh no, this is a Donager class ship. And so these sweaty, filthy, like amalgamation of Earther, Martian, and Belter people are taken in by the MCRN, which is this like extremely buttoned up, like the
uber military, space marines, literally space marines.
Like they have power armor. They actually have power armor, and it's described that the commanding officer, her hair is in a bun so tight it kind of pulls her face back a bit. And so they get pulled into this, and at first they're just like, oh sweet, there's a shower here.
I forgot about that.
But then you have another excellent like just a little drip of context here. Holden is being questioned by the Martian intelligence officer, and he takes focus pills, which is like a mixture of like once again amphetamines and something else, and you can see like his eyes they like dilate, and it's just,
it becomes a Bene Gesserit essentially.
Pretty much. But midway through this questioning, oh no, the Donager is being pinged by some enemy like laser or something like that. And everybody just kind of hand waves it off like, okay, this is the Donager. We're not going to get, we're going to be totally fine. But, just for security protocols, Holden, please go back to your cabin. We'll call upon you, yada, yada. So they're waiting in the cabin, and they're like, okay, well, we're just going to wait till the Donager opens fires on the ship. And then it's like, okay, we felt the torpedoes go off. Well, I guess those ships are dust then. And then all of a sudden they start getting pinged for close combat. And like, wait a minute, no one has ever gotten as close to a ship like this. And as they're talking, a Gauss round punches through the Donager and decapitates Shed. Like it's described that he's there 1 second and his head's just gone the next. And it's actually described as a magic trick. And what's it? And it's something like how like the Gauss round is going thousands of kilometers a second. It's just mind-boggling how fast some of these projectiles go, because we're talking rail guns here in space
Yep.
with no air resistance.
No friction. Yep.
And then we get one of the best scenes in the book, I think, where we have these space marines just like
Wait. Before that, though, there's like a whole bit when they're trying to seal the holes.
yeah, they okay, so there's a hole punch into the Donager, and they have to seal it with like cafeteria trays because because everything is getting vacuumed out, and they don't have a seal kit immediately there.
Yeah.
So what's it? I think like Naomi used like a cafeteria tray, and Alex uses something else, and then it's like they literally just like hot glue it. Like, okay, that's gonna have to be good for now.
And the Marines come in.
And then the Marines come in. We got Lieutenant Kelly. And it's like, I have orders to take you off the ship. You are coming with me. And and they're trying to escape. And they describe how like the bullets that the enemy is using is made to puncture the armor, so that way it goes into the armor and then bounces around and essentially just shreds the person inside the armor. So, and you get this moment where one guy, there's 4 space marines that start off. There's Lieutenant Kelly, there's Gomez, and then there's 2. There's one's like the name like Goober or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember them, but yeah.
And then there's one like Mole or something. And then like Mole gets immediately like poof, like he gets like shot in the head as they're making their way to the lift. And Kelly's like, you hold him off. And Goober's like, I got it. And just like starts like spraying machine gun fire down the hallway. And then they're trying to make their way to the ship, the Tachi. And Gomez like, okay, we're surrounded by whoever these fucks are. And Kelly's like, all right, I need you to play like a magic trick on these guys. And he's like, I got it. And immediately he starts like replicating a whole squad of firing on these guys, where Holden describes it as Gomez is there, and then a heartbeat later, he starts firing from another position. And if he didn't know any better, he could have swore it was more than like 3 people firing on this guy. And so they make their way to the Tachi. There's like explosions and stuff like that. Kelly takes like, I think like a rocket or something right in the side of his chest, and he just like slams on the explosive, but he still manages to make it because of his power armor. And they get on the Tachi and stuff like that. And Kelly tells Alex, like, are you a pilot? And he goes, yeah, why? He's like, well, our pilot's too busy getting killed. I need you to fly us out of here and stuff. And Holden's like, well, here, hold on, you're injured. Let me help you. And Kelly's like, don't fucking touch me. Just get us off this ship. And it's like, okay, fine. And they get off the ship. And then we have a Miller chapter where things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, like Sarah's station is popping off and whatnot. But then we get back and Kelly is just dead. And Holden asks Naomi, well, what happened? And she's like, he's all punched up inside. He must have had he must have broken all of his ribs on one side when he took that explosion, and he knew the high G burn was going to kill him, but he ordered us to do it anyways. And then that's where we have this moment where Holden has to like take in what just happened. Like and like the first of many times he has to deal with the ramifications of his own actions. And he's like because of this, and it's funny because he's an earther, so he has I don't want to say he has like tendencies against the Martians and stuff like that,
right?
Especially because he's an ex-naval officer. He's described as being an ex-lieutenant. So he's like kind of like, okay, I was Earth Navy, you're Mars Navy. We're not going to get along. And then he kind of has this moment where he's reflecting, and he says, he says to himself, 4 Martians died getting us off the ship, 3 consciously making the effort. And he says, I will never make fun of a Marine ever again.
That hit like a fucking brick when he said that.
Yeah.
Because like, that's something else I also like about the writing style. There's never like, that's a bad guy. Mm-mm. Martians are the bad guys. Earthers are the bad guy. It's so gray. It shows you that like these guys, yes, they took them prisoner, but for a reason. Yeah. They were trying to they didn't say it right away, but they were trying to figure out what was happening, what happened to the not the Scorpion,
the Canterbury.
the Canterbury, like and all, like so like little by little you start realizing that like nobody has a fucking clue
Mm-mm.
who's doing what here.
Nope.
So because of all this that happened, Mars thinks that Earth took down the Dunager.
Yep.
And that's when the big old war starts.
Yep, because they find out that Lieutenant Kelly, alongside getting the crew of the Night off the Donager, they also have to get this like bit of information off. And Naomi goes through it and finds out that the signal that the stealth ships that took out the Donager is kind of like a Earth, like a UN ship. So like, oh shit, this is Earth doing this. This is the UN Navy doing this. So then James Holden once again pings out to the rest of the solar system. Hey guys, remember when I said it was Mars? Turns out it might be the Earth. And then this is when open war starts.
Yep. I forgot about that small detail.
Yep. But I just want to circle back to it because like, yeah, we have the Martians and like, no, you're our prisoner now. But then within like 5 minutes, they're like, nope, we have to rescue you. And what's funny is that Lieutenant Kelly, Gomez, and all these other two whose names I honestly kind of forget, like they don't know these people. They don't give a flat fuck about the crew of the Night. But
it's their order.
It's their duty. Like this is we have been ordered to do this. So you get a prime view of how disciplined the Martian Navy is. Like Lieutenant Kelly has ordered 2 of his men to go out and die, and they do it no questions asked. They're just like, all right, okay, cool, we're gonna do it.
And it gives you that sense that you don't mess with Martians, especially Martian Marines. Because like we get a little glimpse of like the Earthers and the way they operate. They're a little bit more lax. The Marines are like the Martian Marines are like that.
Yeah, or like especially like in the second book, and a little bit of the third, we get like Earthers like kind of bickering amongst each other, but Martians are usually like in solidarity. They are all in lockstep of one another. And it's like, no, you do not fuck with the Martians, man.
Yep. So after the Donager, we get I can't remember if it's after or before, but then we go back into Miller's side of the story.
Yep.
Right? No, wait. Well, yeah, Miller's side of the story, but the next big thing that happens is Holden gets pinged by Fred Johnson, which is the leader of the OPA,
the butcher of Anderson Station.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're like, what the fuck?
well, this is where we get a big moment in Miller's story, because riots have been breaking out in Ceres Station, and Havelock, being an Earther, well, he's not actually an Earther. He was just born on Earth, but then he like traveled around. But because he is a stocky, not like
short
Jack Skellington looking person, like he gets labeled. Like he has to deal with prejudice. And there's a moment where he's like, what can I do to make these people see that I'm one of the good ones? And Miller's like, nothing. You will never be. I hate to say it, man. You will never be accepted by these people. And and so because of that, Havelock's like, well, okay, I'm gonna get a transfer out. Well, actually, he doesn't even say that. Miller's like, so you're transferring, huh?
Yep. No, Miller encourages him to transfer. Like Miller saw the writings on the wall for him when the riots started happening. You know, and didn't he get injured? He got injured in the books, right?
Yeah, I believe it was like a small injury. It wasn't like anything life threatening.
Yeah.
But it wasn't life threatening, but it was eye opening.
yeah, exactly. And then he got transferred out, and that's pretty much the last time we see Havelock until
for quite a bit. But I mean, but we still get that scene where like Havelock is drunk and he is trying to pick a fight in an OPA bar, and Miller's like, all right, dude, why don't we let's go to a cop bar. so that way I don't have to send you home in a pine box. But so then Havelock transfers out, and then Miller becomes partners with this girl whose name escapes me. Oh god, it begins with an O. I know it begins with an O. And then that's where she drops the bomb on Miller, where she's like, you do realize you're like the station's joke, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And
Yeah, because this whole time he's acting like he believes he's like one of the top detectives.
and
That's why they gave him the Jules Mao
mm-hmm.
case and all that.
That's why they gave him the Julie Andromeda Mao case, because he believes I'm the only person that can solve this. And the thing about it is, what's um what's a genius bit of writing is, up until this point, Miller has been nothing but competent. He knows exactly where to look. When you see him going through Julie Mao's like diary and stuff like that in her pod, he begins analyzing it and can get into the headspace of Julie Mao and stuff like that. But then once his new partner tells him, hey, you realize you're the joke of the station, right? It kind of pulls back this veil, and Miller finally gets a good look at himself. And he goes, oh God, I am this old, drunk, busted man.
Yep.
And
it was hard to read too. I was like, oh fuck.
It was honestly kind of heartbreaking, because this is right off the heels of him handling that riot. So you're like, oh man, Miller is such a badass. He's like, no, dude, you're And then this is where we get the downward spiral for Miller. This was, I think, if we were to ping it at any moment, this is it. When he realizes he's the joke of Sarah's station, this is where his character starts unraveling.
Then Holden gets pinged by, or gets contacted by Fred Johnson, leader of the OPA, and essentially tells him like, hey, nobody, like, Earth is looking for you, Mars is looking for you.
You got nowhere to turn, buddy.
Come to what's the name of the station? Starts with a T.
Isn't it Thoth? No,
Thoth is the one.
No, you're right. Typho. Yeah.
Is it
Typho or Tifo? I know it's TYPHO.
Sure. Typho.
Yeah.
Then like, hey, resupply, let's talk, right, about everything that happened. And that's kind of like when we get introduced to the actual OPA. And then remind me, because I can't remember if it's here or later on, where Holden essentially opens a contract with them.
I think it's here that Holden opens a contract with them, because and
then they have to find Anubis, right?
Oh no, sorry, not Tycho. It's Tycho, not Typho.
Tycho
Station.
Yeah, with a Y.
Yeah. And so Fred Johnson, who is he is a distinguished but also like
infamous.
Yeah, like a disgraced hero of the UN. He has joined the OPA side, and he essentially says to Holden, like, hey, look, I'll give you money, I'll give you food, I'll give you shelter,
and repair your ship.
Yep. Which is
well, first of all, on the way there, let's talk about how Naomi's such a badass and like flip the Itachi's computer and rename it and change all the security codes.
No, that's not just Naomi. Fred Johnson does that too.
Oh, it really was with him?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
That's the olive branch that Fred Johnson gives. Like, look, I will give you a whole new transponder thing, and this will be your ship. But
that's right. And then they transform it into or they disguise it as a transport thing.
Yep.
Okay, got it. I remember now.
But Johnson,
they call it the Rocinante.
Yeah, the Rockin' Auntie.
The Rockin' Auntie.
Yeah, the Rosin.
I love that name so much.
How is it pronounced? Rocinante?
Rocinante.
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 Bonjour. Anyways.
What?
I know what it is. I know what it is. But I think this is a perfect thing, because Holden has been described as a bit of a romantic. He's idealistic. So naturally he's going to name his ship after something from Don Quixote.
Yep. It was so good. I was like, huh, I know that name, and I looked it up real quick. Yeah, of course it's a Rocinante. It makes total sense.
and which is ironic, but it's one of the discussion questions, so we'll not get into it right now.
Well, to be fair, I think we've answered a lot of those questions already as we're talking. So I don't think we're gonna touch the questions because we've been doing a pretty good job at covering them with the discussions.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a couple of Miller questions. There are a couple of Julie Mao, the ex-wife thing. Like we've done a pretty good job because I was like, I'm listening to everything we're saying. I'm like, wait, we kind of touched upon all of the discussion questions.
Well, okay,
or at least a lot of them.
Well, because the question is, Holden names the Rocinante after the horse of Don Quixote, who's known for chasing after windmills. What is the significance of this name?
Yeah,
and I think the significance is that, like, personally, I think Holden just thinks it's a cool name, which it is.
Yep. I mean, yep.
But it also describes to his character I believe Holden is kind of a character out of the setting. Like, if I were to make a comparison to another popular character, he's like the oh God, who am I thinking? He's like the Ned Stark to this world, where Ned Stark is a man who's too honorable to a fault, and it ultimately leads to his demise. Where Holden is kind of the same way. He just believes, hey, if I give this information out, naturally the good guys are going to win, and there's no possible way there's no possible way the bad guys can capitalize on this and use it in their own way.
He's a little delusional when it comes to that. You're right.
He starts out extremely naive, you know.
Yep.
And it culminates to a point where we're going to jump ahead, where Miller and Holden are talking to one another. And Miller says the line that I'll never forget, where he goes, "How gullible are you?" and Holden's like, "What?" And it's like, Miller's like, "You just played into their hands, you utter buffoon. You did exactly what they wanted you to."
Yep. Yeah, and he keeps doing it too. And like he's you know, we're 4 books in, he's learning a little bit of it, but as you know, in the beginning of the 4th book, you can tell that he's already playing into Alvaro Sala and Fred Johnson's hand.
And it's just like, and it even gets to the point where later on people are like, Holden is a good guy, but he's a moron. Dude,
yep.
Don't trust him with any information.
Yeah. More specifically, Abasarala.
Yeah, it's like don't give him information you're not comfortable with the rest of the world knowing.
No. Yeah, he cannot keep a secret.
No. So what's it? So Fred contracts the crew of the Rocinante now to investigate a member of the OPA that was supposed to be at Eros Station. Eros, EROS. So they want to meet up with this OPA member.
Yeah. Wait, before that though, didn't he ask them to go to find the Anubis?
No. That's not. We're not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mixing my timeline.
Meanwhile, Miller is following this Julie Mao case to the point.
And at this point, he's just gonna. Oh wait, no, I see where you're going.
To the point where the OPA cop and his commanding officer step in, like, okay, you need to stop. And it kind of gets revealed that, like, his commanding officer says, or not commanding officer, but like chief inspector says, we only gave you the case because we didn't expect you to get that far into it. Which again is another dig into Miller's character. Like it just we gave this case to you to throw it away essentially. And he's like, oh wait, no, he's actually solving it. Okay, you need to stop.
Yep.
And he doesn't. He goes against their orders, and then he gets fired. The chapter ends, Miller, you're fired. And so now he's just a guy. He's just a dude. But before he got fired, he was able to pull up all these ship logs because he's like, wait a minute, his like detective senses are ringing. He's like, wait, there's something about the Canterbury that links up with this, and he starts connecting all these dots. So he pulls the ship logs for the Canterbury, or no, the Donager, because
The Dodger.
yeah, because the events of the Donager happen. So he pulls up all the ship logs of the Donager that are public access, and he kind of meets halfway and says, "Okay, there's something going down in Arrow Station." So on his own volition, he's described as having almost no money. I think he pays like a third of his savings just to get to Arrow Station. So he goes to Arrow Station, and that's where he kind of runs into the crew of the Rocinante, although they don't really know it. Neither of them are aware quite yet. Well, he knows who James Holden is. Holden
Yeah.
does not know who Miller is.
Yeah.
Because James Holden, along with the message, he put his face out there so everybody knows who he is now.
Yep.
Um, so Holden and the crew are on Arrow Station, and they go to like this. It's described as the flop house to meet this member of the OPA. And the entire time, Amos is like, we're being followed, right? And Holden says, "Well, do they look threatening?" He's like, I don't know. It's just some guy in a hat. Like, I'm not gonna. He's not really on my radar. He's like, well, if it's not on your radar, I'm not gonna worry about it. and
Yeah.
and so they go to this flop house, and they immediately get jumped by these like gun-toting like thugs and whatnot. And this is we kind of get the idea of how, despite the fact that some of these people have military background, a lot of them are very green. Like Alex doesn't really know what to do in a gunfight. Naomi has no idea what to do in a gunfight. Like,
Yeah, she's not a guns person either.
no, she's an engineer through and through. And Alex, even though he's part of the Martian Navy, he's a pilot. He knows but in a cockpit, he's dangerous. But outside of it, he's kind of like he's pretty green. So only Holden and Amos are kind of really able to hold their own in a gunfight, and then this is where we get the moment.
Yep.
where Miller just comes to the door and just starts
it was so badass.
Just starts gunning down these guys, and someone's like, "Who's that?" And Holden's like, "I don't know, but he's helping us. Nobody shoot the guy in the hat." And again, the best way to introduce like another character to the party is just bam, just right through the door, and it's just, oh my god, I marked out super hard at that part because I'm like, this is so cool. This is how I would do it.
Yeah, taking notes.
and so they're able. I don't think they kill them all. I think they're able to hold them off until they retreat. And then Holden's like, "All right, dude, you gotta start answering some questions." and that's where Miller and Holden are introduced.
Yep.
And then
this is a lot that happened in like only a quarter of the book too.
Yeah, well, no, I think we're about the halfway point now.
Was it?
Oh no, you know what? You're right. This is only the quarter of the book.
Yeah.
So they find out that the OPA member is in fact Julie Mao, except she is something has happened to her. Like she's
something else, literally something else.
She's described as like ruptured and stuff like that, and there's like these things trailing out of her eyes, and she's like a puddle of sludge and stuff. And immediately everyone's like, "Okay, don't touch it. I don't know what it is, but do not touch it."
Which is, by the way, the greatest thing ever, because in most sci-fi, horror, whatever it is, people just touch things.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that everybody was like, "Don't touch anything," like,
oh,
thank God, this is not gonna be stupid writing.
Yeah, and I think like Naomi's like, "We have no fucking clue what this is. Do not touch it. Don't breathe the air that's around it, because we have no idea what it's capable of."
Yeah, and it's important to kind of mention too also that Miller at this point has already. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's already had visions of Julie. Plenty of times.
Okay, so Miller has been having visions this entire time.
Yeah, hallucinations.
But at first, it's of his ex-wife. Like his ex-wife is the one telling him, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that," blah blah blah.
Yep.
But then when he picks up the Julie Mao case, I think it's after he reads Julie Mao's diary in her pod. That's when he starts envisioning Julie Mao. And
so let me ask you a question here real quick, because I kind of, maybe I'm just wrong here, but
he's crazy.
No, Holden and team named the ship the Rocinante.
Mm-hmm.
And Miller is a disgraced detective that is having hallucinations and
Mhm.
trying to find windmills. Is he the Don Quixote to
I
Rocinante?
I think he is the Don Quixote because he's described as being like he's past his prime. You
Mm-hmm.
know, he's like I said, he's the joke of Sarah's station, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
and so nobody expects anything of him. Like he used to be a star class detective, and now he's just a sad old broken man. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I think he is the Don Quixote, you know, like in a weird gritty noir way. Like he's not incompetent. Miller is
No,
anything
he's not.
Miller's not
That's
incompetent, you
yeah.
know, but
And that's it. So that's kind of so that's the. It's important to kind of remember that he's been having visions of Julie this whole time.
yes.
So when he finally finds her and sees her the way she is on the bathroom floor with all this alien stuff, molecules all over her,
Hmm.
you know, dead for God knows how many days, it breaks him again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It further
It's like
breaks.
one hit after another.
Yep. And this is just another strong degradation of Miller's character. Like
Yep.
as we go through this story, we see Miller get broken further and further along. And this is another big hit. You know, like the first establishing punch was him finding out he's the joke, and then this is just another hit on top of that. Um,
Yep.
and they Holden and Co and Miller like are they're not like a party yet, but they're like, okay, we're after the same thing, you know. So you help me, I'll help you, and so Miller and Holden are investigating what's going on in Arrow Station because Miller realizes, hey, wait a minute, like these cops that are walking around are wearing the riot gear that went
Yep.
missing on Sarah's station, and then
Not just that, but there were some of the thugs that disappeared from Sirius Station.
the some of the thugs that were in the protection racket, they disappeared from Saris and they came to Eros, and then all of a sudden all of Eros Station goes on lockdown, and
Yep.
they start like funneling all these people into like the lockdown areas, and Miller's like, don't follow them, and you know, just trust me on this, don't follow them. So they kind of duck out of the way, and then they come back out after the wave of people have gone by, and things go south on Arrows real quick.
Really fast. Yep. Yep.
And
Yep. So this is essentially when the main antagonist, catalyst of the whole story gets introduced.
yep, this
Like
is
like fully, which is the proto molecule.
mhm. So what they realize is that almost everybody on Arrow Station is being exposed to a massive amount of radiation in these bunkers that they have been led down to the point that Miller and Holden go into the bunker,
Oh
and,
yeah.
and they're like a foot inside the door, and they get exposed to a lethal amount of radiation to the point where it's like, okay, we have hours until our body starts falling apart. So
Yep.
so they're like, okay, Naomi, we have like 3 hours. If we're not back in 3 hours, just get on the Rocinante and get out of here. Um, so then they start investigating what's happening, and then the people inside the radiated bunkers start getting back up.
Yep.
And this is where we get our first introduction into the vomit zombies.
Vomit zombies.
Where these people start like throwing up this brown bile and goo and stuff, and it's infecting other people as they're doing it. So they're like, okay, we can't, well, obviously don't touch the stuff. But then Miller and Holden have to fight their way back out. And this is where we get the moment where Holden's like, where Miller's like, if you see anybody wearing this kind of protection, shoot him in the throat. Don't go for the head.
Yep.
Don't go for the body. You got to shoot
Yep.
him in the throat. That's the only unprotected part. Um, and
Yep.
and this is where we get another step into Miller's degradation of his character, because he's gunning people down left and right. Like Holden's holding his own, you know, but Miller's the one that's like being the muscle here.
Yeah. Yeah, because Holden is like shooting, so so the cover fire and then
Yeah,
moving along. He's hoping not to hit people.
yeah. Holden,
But Miller's borderline making it a sport.
yeah. Holden is shooting to suppress. Miller is shooting to kill,
Yeah.
and and it gets to a moment where they're like held down, like in a casino, because Eros is described as a big casino in the sky, and they're by some slot machines, and Miller like comes to the realization that he's killed more people in the past hour and a half than he has in his entire service as a detective, and he starts to confront the fact that I've lost it, like Miller has gone off the deep end, and this is, I'm no longer a man anymore. I'm like I'm something else. And then we get this moment where we have Miller and then Death Miller.
Oh yeah.
and Miller splits off in his own mind and becomes this essentially like walking, killing suicide machine where he's like, nope, I'm gonna die. I've just accepted it, but I'm gonna take out everything else with me. And
Yep.
and like, this is it. Miller has snapped. He's lost his mind, you know. But thankfully, Holden and Miller make their way back to the Rocinante, and they have to undergo weeks of like this anti-cancer stuff because they're described as like bleeding out from every orifice because because they have like massive radiation poisoning.
Luckily, they had the Rocinante, which has one of the most advanced med base,
Mhm.
so they were able to suppress that, and they were gonna be in like taking medicine for the rest of their lives, but they're not gonna die from radiation poisoning.
No, they still have to take anti-cancer medications.
Yeah.
Because it's described that they get new cancers every week or
Yeah.
something like that. And they have to like routinely go in, get like their system flushed out, and then come back out. And then this is where we get the moment where Holden, and it's funny because it comes from Miller's point of view, where Holden expresses the fact that he has fallen in love with Naomi. And the entire time Miller's like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't. Oh, he did it. And
Yeah.
it's just I just think it's really funny because that's the moment where we have this seasoned, like weather beaten, like world sorry, what's the word I'm looking for, like kind of like worldly character, and he has to witness this awkward
Yep.
like idealistic, like Naomi, I've always loved you ever since ever since I saw you. And Naomi's like, no, you fucking haven't. We've been serving on the
Yeah.
same ship for years. And so,
Yeah.
and Miller's just like, oh kid, dude, now's not the time. But
Read the room, Holden.
but then we also get, but it's also a really good bit of writing because then we get Holden's perspective on it. And and when they're back at the casino, Holden's like, oh my god, I'm going to die next to this guy I don't know and I definitely don't like.
Yep.
and
Yep.
it's like, this is it, I'm gonna die here. And so he gets this bit of perspective, and he realizes, well, he might not be in love with Naomi, but like he gets a kind of new lease on life. But then after this situation, Holden's like, Miller, you're part of the crew, for better or for worse, you're part of the crew. And this is the only time that we actually see Miller break down and start crying, because he's like, oh my god, I'm actually valued now. like like I'm a part of something.
Yep.
Man, this is taking a lot longer than I thought it was going to.
Yeah. So let's jump to the next bit, right? So after this, they kind of the next big kind of high point of the story is when they go to thought section.
Well, they find the ship that Julie Mao was on.
Yeah.
The scope.
Razorback.
No, not the Razorback.
Oh, the Scopuli.
The Scopuli, and then they find the ship, the Anubis.
Oh, the Anubis, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're able to take it out, Um, and from the Anubis, they get a message from someone named Dresden, who is talking about the
Dresden.
proto molecule, and they trace the signal back to Thoth's station. And so,
The god of science.
God. Oh, is that what Thoth is? The god of
Yeah.
science? Really? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Okay, neat little interesting thing there. So then the OPA, Fred Johnson's like, okay, well, we got to take out Thoth Station. If this proto molecule thing's here, this thing is dangerous.
Yep.
Um, so Holden and Miller are like, okay, we're gonna help out. Miller is in full blown like he's suicidal. Let's just be
Yeah.
perfectly honest with it. Miller is suicidal at this point. He's like, hey, I got to die for something. So he's like, I want to be part of the ground crew. I want to be boots on the ground. I want to help out. And meanwhile, Holden is going to like run interference in the air and stuff like that because there's something else. There's like a UN ship that's going to come interfere with it, so they have to hold off the UN ship as well. So they go in and they find out that the protomolecule has been not manufactured but harvested from a moon off of Jupiter, I believe.
Io, yeah.
Yeah, Io, maybe. It's been harvested off a moon off of Jupiter. And these people, this protogen group has been working on it. They've been retooling it, and they wanted to see what it would do to living beings because they find that this thing has been a weapon that's been sent billions of years before to destroy something, obviously.
Phoebe,
thank you. And so what Protogen does is that they make their scientists into sociopaths. They actually medically remove their empathy from whatever part of the brains, and so that way they're just like, okay, let's just do what we have to do. And that's what leads to the moment where they release the proto molecule onto Arrow Station, and then that's where all that happens. The whole thing has been manufactured inside and out. And then this is where we get the moment where Miller and Holden have to confront each other on their differing morals. And to be perfectly honest with you, even though I ultimately decide with Miller on this end, I can totally see where both sides are coming from on this.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Because like the scene plays out that they find Dresden,
Mhm.
right? It was Miller, Holden, and Fred Johnson.
Well, Miller finds him first.
Right.
And Miller puts him under arrest and stuff like that. And then Fred Johnson shows up, and then Holden shows up.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And he started talking, and he's doing the whole evil guy monologue. But it's not really evil monologue. He's just a scientist without the empathy part of his brain turned on. And he's like, we just wanna this has been here for millennia. You know, like we gotta figure out what it does, how we can like, you know, make us evolve even farther to get more resources and blah blah. And he starts making sense. A little too much sense.
That's the scary part. He's not
Yeah.
He's not like Arrow Station was, no, like he's like, no. This was testing grounds. We had to test this and stuff like that.
And in fact, he wasn't even like, oh no, LPA. He was like, oh, LPA, are you gonna take charge of this? I don't care who's in charge of it as long as I get to keep doing my research.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't care if it's Mars. He doesn't care if it's UN. He doesn't care if it's LPA. He just wants to do the research.
Yeah, he's like,
and he starts making a little too much sense in front of Fred Johnson.
And the thing about it is that he says this is not like a UN Belter Mars thing. This is a human thing. Like this will surpass everything about humanity. And the worst part about it is that Miller immediately doesn't buy it. He's just like, all right, dude, whatever. And Holden tells the guy to shut the fuck up. But you start seeing Fred Johnson get swayed by it. And then this is where Miller says, all right, that's enough out of you. Or he says something like that. No, he says, okay, that's enough. And he takes out his gun and just blows this guy's head off just in front of everybody. And it pisses everybody off in the room. But the thing about it is, like I said before, I can see everyone's side from this. I can see how Holden's like, no, there is a due process. We are not judge, jury, and executioner here. Like, we have to take this guy in.
Again, a little bit of a naivety coming from him.
But I mean, to be honest, that's how you're supposed to do things. Like, this guy was like, he's supposed to answer for his crimes. He had all the information. He could have telling us what he knew and whatnot. But then Miller's like, but you were starting to buy it. and this is not how things are handled in the belt. Like this guy was too sleek, he was too powerful, he was too
Mm-hmm.
rich, he was gonna skate. Like and we all knew it. This guy was gonna get away. He was probably gonna get like a plea deal or something like that.
Yep.
So it's like I can see both sides of this argument. And ultimately, I
Yep.
hate to say it, I have to side with Miller on this one. Like, no,
Yep.
this dude, he's just too dangerous to be kept alive.
Yep.
You
And
know?
Fred Johnson just wanted to have the leverage for his government.
Yep. And he doesn't quite lose that leverage because they do manage to get a proto molecule sample.
Sample, yeah.
Yeah. But Fred Johnson just wants his legitimacy, and he loses a big part of it when Dresden dies, and then that's where Holden's like, all right, you're off the crew. Then I'm sorry,
Yep.
you know.
Can have someone like you with my ship.
Yep, I can't have somebody that I can't trust, and this is where
That's the.
that yeah
I
this
was gonna say that's another big hit to Miller. Like
no this
he
is
finally got like a little resemblance of like somebody who cares, somebody who family and whatever. And because he has that moral compass of his own, he kind of throws that away.
yep. And
You know?
it's this is I think this is it. I think from this point on, Miller can't go any lower than he already is.
Yeah.
I think we just see him at his lowest, and he even describes it as like I saw what was like what Eden was like, and I threw that all away, or something like that, something to that effect. It's a great line that I unfortunately forget the majority of, but it gets to a point where he has to hot bunk with an OPA member because he has no money, he has nothing,
Mm-hmm.
so he begs Fred Johnson for a job. It's like, dude, I just need something. I just need money. And Fred doesn't even trust this guy. He's like, no, you're too much of a loose cannon, and stuff like that. And he calls him friend. He's the only character in the story that has called Miller a friend at this point. And even then, when he calls him friend, he says it in a way that's sarcastic. I
Yeah.
I think the line is, "This is why you don't have many friends, friend." You know,
Yep.
and so Fred's like, "Okay, I do have a job for you," and or no, actually, this is where Miller's like, "I have a proposition because Arrow Station is still here. It's still a problem, and a lot of people don't know what's going on at Arrow Station. So, hey, remember that big Mormon ship that you guys have been building this whole time?"
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. This was Miller's idea to throw the Novu, which is described as a generation ship that the Mormons have been building to just go to their own planet, and it's been building for like what, like decades or something like that.
Yeah, a very long time. It's
Yeah. And so they're like, the Novu is big enough to knock Eros into the sun. We need to launch the Novu at it and just do everything we can. And we got to get this proto molecule out here because if even a drop of it spreads to anywhere in the solar system, we're screwed. So so then Johnson's like, okay, we're gonna get everybody together, and Holden, you have your mission to do this. Miller is going to be boots on the ground. He's going to help put the detonation packs on Eros so that certain things can go off. And then this is where Miller decides, I'm just going to stay on Eros. Like, I I have nothing else. I'll just stay here. He even tells the guys, no, just leave me here. And what's really sad is that he tells the rest of his crew, not Holden. He's long since been divorced from Holden. But he tells the rest of his crew, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna stay here on Arrows. And they're like, okay. And they leave.
yeah.
There's no ceremony to it. There's no like, oh man, it was great serving with you. They're just like, okay. And it's just like one last little insult. Like nobody cares about Miller, man.
Yep.
Poor.
Yep. It's very sad.
Yep. And he's just, okay, now I'm on this station. And
So at this point, yeah, he's in the station. Like he's like, I think he also stays behind because he want to make sure that some of the things detonate because one of them couldn't get applied or whatever
yeah.
on Error Station, which is filled with proto molecule, and he's just sitting there, chilling, looking at the Nauvoo approaching. And a small detail that we forgot to mention is that people have been hearing voices and sounds coming from arrows.
Yep.
Um,
It's been described that voices have been broadcasting like just little bits here and
Mhm.
there. sometimes you can hear people voices, and sometimes, like especially from Miller's point of view, he hears like the broadcasting system
Yeah,
while he's on Arrow Station. So like
yeah,
the people on Arrows are not dead.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
transformed, but they're not dead.
yeah. Which is eerie already, all of its own.
Yeah.
And while he's there waiting for Nabu Station to smack against Arrow Station, it misses.
By thousands of kilometers. And they're
And
like,
before he misses, he hears a familiar voice that just says, "Don't fucking touch me,"
yep.
which is the voice of Julie Mao.
Well, we don't know that yet. We just
No, he knows it. That's how he found out, because he clicked that with an earlier message or earlier video of her when she was being attacked way back, and that's how he figured out that Julie Mao it's in Arrows.
well no.
That's what gave him the final drive to go
Well, I thought
push the thing all the way in.
I thought I thought what clicked was that there was a voice saying you can't have the razor back. And it says razor back as in spaced out, and then that's when it clicks, oh wait, it's not a phrase. They're talking about a ship, and then that's where he like the razorback ship or something like that. It's like small
Yeah.
little details.
Yeah,
So-
and then the other one was like, "Don't fucking touch me," and then the thing moved away from Naboo.
So Eros moves I think it's described like millions of kilometers out of the
Yeah,
way.
and everybody's like, "What just happened? How did it miss?" And then I guess I can't remember if Miller was talking to Holden or Naomi, and they were like, "Oh, Arrows just moved," and Miller's like, "Then how am I still alive?"
Yeah, because
Because imagine that, like, if something that big moved that fast,
oh
you
you
would be sauce against the wall.
oh yeah, you just be liquid at that point. But Eros moves millions of kilometers out of the way with no G ramifications or anything
Yeah.
like that, and then starts hurtling towards something. And they predict it might be the Earth. They're not entirely sure exactly what it is, but it just starts bolting towards
Yep.
something to the point that not even the Rocinante can keep up with it. And the Rocinante,
They tried.
they really do. They're going like 9G or something like that.
It was something extreme.
It's to the point that the G's are so bad that they can't talk. They have to communicate via like a little keypad that the spaces are only millimeters away because they can't move their fingers enough.
Yep.
and then this is where Fred Johnson's like, hey, look, we essentially just need you to sacrifice yourself. We can't let this thing get reached wherever it's going to reach. So we need you to essentially just kill yourself. Just put the thing on autopilot, go as fast as the Rocinante can go. And Holden's like, no, I'm not doing that. All right, Alex, hit the brakes.
Yeah.
and then that's when he finds out that Miller is still on Eros. And like, wait, what? Weren't you supposed to leave? He's like, yeah, I kind of didn't. And then this is where we get the moment where Miller spends 30 hours walking around Arrow Station looking for Julie Mao, because he realizes that Julie Mao's the one piloting the ship. That's why not the ship, sorry, piloting the
Arrow Station. Yep.
and that's why they think it's heading back to Earth, because Julie Mao just wants to go home, you know.
Mhm.
And man, dude, this part, it's like it's
Yep.
it's horrifying, but it's also heartbreaking at the same time.
Yep.
Because you have a broken man walking through this nightmare station, and he's just dragging along a cart with explosives, and he has only one goal in mind, and that is, I gotta find Julie Mao and I gotta put an end to this. And okay, I'm gonna be
And he finds her.
and yeah, he finds her, and she's described as like the lower half of her is this proto molecule thing, but the upper half of her like is somehow restored, and she's just Julie Mao, and she's sleeping, in like this like weird alien grove with glowing blue not butterflies, fireflies.
Fireflies.
Yeah, and she wakes up and she's like, "Where am I? What's going on? Who are you?" And Miller takes off his helmet, and his EVA suit's like going nuts. He's like, "Whatever, man, it's fine. This is all over now, anyways." And he takes off the helmet of his EVA suit, and he's like talking her down, like, "Hey, you don't know who I am, but I've been looking for you this whole time, and and this is essentially what's going down." And he gives Julie Mao the information about what's happening, and and what's funny is that before he was talking to Holden about, okay, if I can find Julie, what do I do? Like where do I go? And Holden just like he says as a joke, like, "Oh well, she can have Jupiter then." and and so Miller is talking to Julie. It's like, "Hey, look, you can't do this. If you drive this thing, I know you want to go home, but if you do this, so many people are going to die. So I need you to not do this. I need you. Let's just go to Jupiter instead."
Or
And
Venus. Yeah.
oh, sorry, yeah, you're right. Venus, not Jupiter. My bad.
Venus.
Yeah, sorry. Holden's like, "Yeah, you can have Venus." And so and then we get the line where Julie is like, "Well, what happens when we get there?" And Miller's like, "I don't know. We die, I guess."
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and it's just and then Aero Station just pulls a 180, and it just makes its way towards Venus, and then that's it. That's the last we hear of Miller. Just Miller just like signs off with Holden and the crew, and he just and the last we see is that it's just Miller just holding Julie's hand as they race towards Venus, and it's just,
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big man. I'm a big strong man. I cried.
Dude, listen, I have choked up so many times in so many different parts of each book. Last night, tears. Like I was finishing the book, and when you get there, you'll know what I'm talking about. But that moment with Julie was also one that I'm just like, I couldn't breathe. I'm like, oh my god, like it was, waterfalls were about to happen. I am not going to lie.
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. This is only one of 2 books that made me cry.
Really?
Yeah. The other one was Green Mile.
Well, I mean,
yeah. I mean, if you don't cry during that, you're a sociopath.
Yeah, you're a monster. Cibola Burns has some good moments. I know I choked up a little bit in Abaddon's Gate. Was it Abaddon's Gate? Yeah, Abaddon's Gate.
Abaddon's Gate gets ugly. Like there's like there are some really bad parts in it. So yeah, I can totally understand. But man, I don't know what it is about it, but it's just the fact that like I'm gonna repeat myself, and I'm so sorry, but it's just for emphasis. But the Miller is just a broken man, and it's just like, and it just, everything just kind of lines up for Miller. And there's even a moment where he's reflecting on this while he's going through Aero Station, and he's like, did everything play out? Did everything like go the way it was meant to go, so that way we can have the perfect man for the perfect situation that's supposed to do
I remember
this?
that.
Yep. where it's like like this. And he does have a moment where everything has led to this. Like everything has gone to the point where I'm supposed to be this guy, this broken man with a suicidal goal that can save humanity. And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to one person. That the hero of humanity is essentially just a broken old alcoholic detective.
Yep.
That's just like, you know what?
Yep.
We're going to hell tonight, Julie. Let's go to Venus. So I'm making light of it, but it's one of the saddest moments I've ever read in literature.
Yeah.
So
it's good.
And
the whole book was excellently read.
Yeah.
And that part was a gut punch.
Mm-hmm.
Like after going everything you did with Miller, you kind of were hoping even towards the end that somehow, at least I was, that somehow he was gonna be able to fix the dead man switch and like head back out or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? But
Nope.
At that moment, when like towards the end, after he was like almost finishing, almost reaching Julie Mao's position, like you could tell. Like I was like, oh man, this is it, isn't it? Like Miller's gone.
He ain't making it out of this one. And
Yeah.
and then the worst part about it is that like I think the book ends with like a Fred chapter. Like he's the epilogue, and it's him and Holden discussing. Okay, so what's interesting is that we never get Miller's first name throughout the entire time. The entire book, he's just been Detective Miller or just Miller.
Right.
And this is the first time we get no. Holden's like, no, his name was Josephus Miller, and he needs to be recognized. And just in Holden fashion, he's like, no, we need to tell the story of Miller. Like this is who he was. And Fred Johnson, and sadly enough, I kind of agree with Fred Johnson's like, we can't tell the entire story. Like, we can't tell the story of how this loose cannon suicidal cop was like he can be a martyr, yes, but we kind of have to smooth over the rough parts for people to understand. Like, sadly and ultimately enough, we have to sell this story,
Yep.
and it can't be, we can't give every gritty detail.
It's the class. Like I think and that plays out through every single one of the books. Is Holden is very like he wants to be transparent about everything,
Mm-hmm.
and he's always dealing with people like Johnson, people like Avasarala, that are always trying to, and they know how to do it, and I get why they do it. I just wish it didn't have to be that way. I want to root for Holden when he wants to make these rash decisions, but like, they're not wrong.
No, and
which I think is a good subversion of like the classic hero, because I feel like a lot of stories have like that hero, like, oh, he's gonna do all these righteous things and it's all gonna play out well. And Holden, like, ultimately it plays out well, but there's a lot of consequences.
Yep.
To his righteousness, I guess you could say.
Yep.
And he even himself admits it. Like, he knows it.
And it won't be, it'll be like in the next book, especially in the next book, where we get like the ramifications of what happens. But I think it's a great theme to touch on at the end here, where we have Holden witnessing history in the making, but Johnson is the one's like, we can't say every detail, like history has to be presented this way, because it just won't be accepted that, that the dirty gritty details of it, and we get this, and we have this witness to an historic event, and he knows all of the dirt that follows behind it, but then he has to see how Miller is going to be like this kind of martyr that unfortunately gets like swept under the rug, like he's never mentioned again, like even in
he's kind of is, but more like, oh, that's right, there was another person in Eros, not like, oh,
but
Miller the savior.
Yeah, Miller is not like we don't have Miller as the hero. Like there's no statues being erected in Miller's honor or anything like that. Like he does, Miller, like it's just a final insult to injury. Miller does not get the recognition that he deserves,
Yep.
And it even gets to a point where, somebody else in one of the later books just goes, "Oh yeah, I had a former partner on Ceres." Like that's it. That's the only mention of Miller that we get.
Yep.
And it's just like, no, dude, this guy single-handedly saved humanity, but politics just gets in the way of things,
Yep.
And I don't know. It's just a beautiful theme to touch on. I mean,
it is, and it plays out through all the series so far.
Yeah, it's just how like how we see the dirty, like, frustrating tanglements of politics, but on the outsider's perspective, it has to be clean cut. On the
we get the how the sausage is made.
Yep, and but then we also get the other side of it. We get like later on in the later books, we see how like, oh no, it was just this, like this just happened, and like no, that's not No. There was so much more granular detail involved in it. I am so sorry this episode took so long.
No, dude, I think we did a good job at summarizing the book. If you want to spend 11 hours,
I know, but I
reading it.
wanted to go over the discussion topics, but we just went over the book instead.
We kind of did. Like, what did we miss? Let me see. Let me go look down the questions. Many people include Miller in the crew and the Rocinante called James Holden a righteous man, a good man. We talked about that. Holden and Miller are both described as uncompromising in their beliefs. We talked about that. When he learns the new information, Holden broadcasts to the world. We talked about that. Miller has hallucinations of his ex-wife and little Julie. We talked about that. After telling Miller why Miller doesn't have any friends, we talked about that. Like, we talked about all this stuff. Like, we might have not answered each one of the questions, but we talked about it. I think we all kind of knew. We kind of knew what the questions were, and we just included that into. So I think we did a good job. Yeah. But hopefully, if you guys stuck to us talking about this book for the past hour and 15 minutes, probably, even though we said a lot, I still recommend you guys go read it because there is an infinite amount of details between all of this. This were just the big story beats.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're missing the small stuff where, like, what's it, like, scotch and the belt is made with fungus, and how like everything is, like, not plant based, everything is fungus based. Like, there's no cheese. That's why the cheese smuggling was such a big deal. Like, someone's like, oh man, they brought thousands of dollars worth of Parmesan or something like that.
Fuck yeah, man.
Which is like probably like a wedge of cheese.
Yeah. So yeah, Andrew, this is why The Expanse, I've been obsessed with it. I'm glad that you're getting into it. I'm glad you're catching up with me. Because now I don't have to be like, oh, how far back is he?
Well,
like one book behind right now.
Well, yeah. You said it. You say I'm catching up with you, but as I start a book, you're like, oh yeah, I just finished that book yesterday. I'm like, well, fuck. All right.
But still, I mean, I'd read. Yeah, you're catching up. Eventually, we'll be in sync. But I hope you guys had a good glimpse into The Expanse. Please, if you haven't, go read James A. Corey's Leviathan Wakes. It's an excellent book.
It is.
It's a great sci-fi story that is not too overwhelming or heavy. It's just good action, good drama.
But it's also
not like.
But it's also not overly fictitious. Like, I can see this stuff happening. Like, this is all rooted in science and stuff like that. Like, there's no like warp drive. There's no like there are lasers, but it's like most of it's like ballistics and stuff like that, you know?
Yep, but it's actual lasers the way we know them now. Like, it's not lasers like, you know, Star Wars lasers. Like, like the weapons are rubber bullets or bullets powered by electromagnetic. Like, it's all based in science. There's no taser gun or not taser gun. Phaser gun or whatever.
Yeah,
Star Trek,
yeah. There's no
very grounded.
There's no lightsabers or anything like that. Or
yeah, it's good. It's good. It's excellent. The writing is excellent. The characters are fun. Each book introduces new characters. There's like a handful of like reoccurring characters, of course, but for the most part, there's always new ones that come in and out. So it's always fresh. So please, I encourage all of you guys who are listening to go read The Expanse. And while you're at it, after you finish the first 3 books, you can watch seasons 1 and 2 of the show. It's pretty good. I mean, they changed some things which pisses me off, but at the end of the day, I get it. It's because it's TV. It's not like they're changing things just for the sake of changing things. It makes sense. It makes me a little angry, but it makes sense.
I mean, just having Thomas Jane as Miller, perfect.
Oh.
Perfect choice.
Excellent casting. Excellent casting. He's Miller.
Yeah. So I mean, I had to look it up because I'm like, all right, who plays Miller? Okay, that's not you know what? Pretty good choice. Pretty strong choice.
Yeah. Even James Holden, I still appreciate him. Naomi, I think her look is fine. I just feel like she needs to be a lot taller. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, she's the belter. She's supposed to be the tallest of them. So
yeah, that's it. That'll be the only change I make. Like, stretch her out and boom.
Yeah. So
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to real quickly to the one part that's consistent in every episode.
All right, so
Session highlights.
book two
Wait.
starts.
No, Andrew.
So book 2 starts on Mars, and this is where we get 3 hours.
So we get introduced to Bobby.
All right,
3
so
hours.
Bobby.
So now we're done talking about Bobby.
God
Now
dang.
let's talk about Avarasala 3 hours later.
God.
Now that we know Avarasala, here's Jules Mao.
And then Avasarala is like, God dang it, Bobby.
Pretty much. Oh man! All right, so let's talk about a little bit about session highlights, Andrew.
Session highlights. Yay! Okay, so I had a serious session highlight and then a funny session highlight.
Yeah, I got my session highlight. I think you know what it is, but go ahead.
All right, well, no, go, because I think we're thinking of the same thing.
Okay, my session highlight was just using the spell magic.
Counterspell?
Actually having counterspell and actually being successful at it.
Yes. that was my serious one because that had a weird pop off on the rest of the group. Because so the group is fighting this drow warlock that has that has mentally enslaved this orc camp, and the orc chief is there fighting as well, and he's really just beating the shit out of Beery. And it's funny because the running joke is that the entire time, like every time I introduce a new element, has this like cool. As the situation gets noticeably worse for her character. Cool. And so then I try to have the warlock cast Dimension Door, and I, being me, thinking, oh, haha, I pulled a fast one in the group. Like, all right, this is where the warlock's at. Yeah, and they're like,
importantly, because the two casters are up on this like little like wall thing, right? Kind of taking cover and shooting down. So
yeah, I mean, you guys are playing it smart, and it's frustrating me. So I'm like, I'm going to bring the threat to them. and so I'm like, okay, the warlock's there now, and you're like, wait, no, you're not. I'm going to cast counterspell. I'm like, wait, what? So you cast counterspell, and because the warlock casted the spell at a higher spell slot because warlock, you have to roll a DC, and you've rolled it, you cleared it, so the warlock, I guess, didn't cast Dimension Door. And I'm like, wow, and that's where like the whole like me and I think the rest of the group, sans Robert, because Robert's seen it in action, but the rest of us, like, I don't think we've ever seen a player use counterspell before. Like, it's almost always like a DM exclusive thing. So we're just like,
I've had it on the list for a while, and I'm like, when am I gonna use it? I don't know yet. And then you've done a couple small spells, and I'm like, maybe I use it for fun. So it's like, no, that's not a spell big enough. Mm-hmm. When I saw that token move behind me, I'm like, counterspell. And I knew everything aligned.
and then my funny session highlight still involves the same character, but after everything was said and done, you guys won, you saved the day, you destroyed the drow warlock, and you freed the orcs. And Octavio immediately starts like doing his prestidigitation thing, or thaumaturgy, or whatever, and starts like making all these guys, like all these orcs, like look like bright neon colors with the Dia de los Muertos thing. And so I play it off that like one of the orcs is like, I have been blessed, blah blah blah, and then somebody else gets it, and it's like, oh, and like the orc is like kind of embarrassed because he popped off a little early, and he realized that everybody else is getting the same thing. Like, oh.
I think another session highlight for me was the session before, when you have more than half the session, it was just Mittens and Swift sneaking through and successfully killing it with the stealth and getting and taking down a guy. Like, it was great. It was like Splinter Cell on crack.
Yep, they're getting the intel, and they're getting the layout of the fortress. Like, all right, we got this. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, they go back to get us so we can go. They find out where the battery is, so they come back out and they're like, "Hey guys, you gotta do this." This is the plan. This is follow the exact same step, right? When you start moving, the first stealth roll that we did.
And it was a group stealth roll, and everybody failed. And I'm like, how?
The first fucking roll.
And but it wasn't like the intel you guys had was useless. I mean, you were still
it wasn't.
You were still able to do things, but now you just had to fight your way through the fortress.
It was so funny because it took like no time. Also, the fact that while they were doing the whole stealth thing, Beery was just like playing solitaire, and Octavio was making snow angels and peeing on the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Because why not?
yeah. Barry and Octavio were just fucking around, and meanwhile we have Swift and Mittens discovering what a gibbering mouther was.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna keep that door locked.
I love that. It's like just nope, not worth it.
But another good moment was when Barry rips the door off and uses it as a barricade. And then that's what Robert's like, wait, why don't more people use doors as impromptu shield?
Exactly. Because you described it as like a very big door that even had like a barrage behind it or whatever you call it, little thing. And then she's like, can I break? And she breaks the door out of the shield and just pushes everybody.
She rolled a 24 on her strength check. Yeah, I think that's...
Yeah.
or no, she was using her channel divinity, so I think it was like a 27. So it's just like Mr. Bubbles from like Lilo and Stitch just pops the door right off the edges.
Yeah.
Oh man. Good shit.
Yeah, it was a good session. Barry got the worst.
Cool. I mean, that's just, and it's like I had to like, okay, hold on. I just want you guys to know I'm not bullying. It's just the fact that you have Beery and Swift down there. Swift cannot be seen, and Beery is a really big, imposing person.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm not picking on anybody. That's just you have to see things from my perspective.
Cool.
Oh man.
Oh
shit.
Well, I think that's everything we have for this episode, Andrew.
I think so. We've only been recording for 2 hours and 20 minutes. So
only. This is gonna be great, I promise. Oh, thank you everybody who joined us today. I hope you had a good time as we discussed the first book on the Expanse, Leviathan Wakes. Please read it. At least read the little sampler that they have on Amazon or Apple. It's a really good book. I recommend it, especially if you like sci-fi. While you're at it though, please make sure to also like us on... I was getting confused. Like us on... or follow our page on Facebook, and like us on Twitch. We released this episode on podcast form on everything, Apple, Spotify. So find our name, you'll find us there. Make sure to give us a rating, like us, and follow us there too as well. But with that, thank you so much for joining us in this wonderful Sunday. And as always, stay safe out there and keep on gaming. Bye.
Bye.